Hey, what's up, everybody? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to Season 2 of the Mindshare Podcast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at industrysyndicate.com and mindshare101.com. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 58. So a few quick notes before we get started. The Mindshare Challenge is starting on February 11th. If you're already registered, buckle up because we are about to go next level. I mean, we are constantly updating this stuff, content, new apps. I mean, I am just super pumped about this. And I mean, if you're that person who's maybe heard about it, or maybe you haven't, but either way, you're not registered, don't wait too long. We're starting to fill up and the 40% off promo code is still available. Think about it. This is a 60-day challenge where we challenge you to do better than you're already doing. We hold you accountable, and it's all gamified. Each week builds on the next. We teach you the strategy, we give you the plan, and we, bottom line, help you make even more money than you are now. And I mean, this is no matter how much you're already making. This thing's loaded. You need to be there, so go to the ms101.com. Read other people's success stories, get the details, get registered. Again, that's the MSC101.com. And the promo code, mark this down, is MS10140. So that's MS10140. The other thing I wanted to mention, beyond this podcast, if we aren't already, connect with me on social, Facebook, Insta, reach out, say what's up. Make sure you're subscribed so you can keep up with Mindshare 101 videos. They're weekly reminders focused on your business and made for you. All sorts of good tips and tricks for how you can get more details. I mean, Mindshare 101 has so much great content for you, even beyond this podcast, and I just want to invite you to take advantage of all of it. Now, last week I had posted a question in a real estate group on Facebook, and to date, there are currently about 400 comments on this one question. I mean, a really nice response to a fairly simple question. But what I learned, well, I'll give you the top 3 things people and sort of others had to say in just a moment. But first, over a decade ago, her real estate career began a slow but steady shift to industry relations and professional development. Since then, she's enjoyed a career full of personal and professional satisfaction. And today, she is managing broker with one of the GTA's top and largest brokerages, and she continues to work selflessly to help realtors build efficient and profitable careers. Her extensive knowledge in the nuances of this complicated industry has helped her to emerge as a recognized influencer and thought leader, facilitating modernization and raising the bar across the board. She also followed up on my question in that Facebook group with a question of her own. So I had asked, what annoys you most about other realtors? She followed that up with her own question, and she asked, what do you appreciate most about other realtors? So again, what annoys you most about other realtors, and what do you appreciate most about other realtors? With me on the show today, I am joined by my friend, Sandra Kirkland. Sandra, what is up?
I would feel really humbled if I hadn't written that. So thank you very much, David.
No, it's, you know what? It's a pleasure having you. Seriously, and I love that you posted that follow-up question the other day. I mean, for everything we learned off of the post that I put up, which I got to say, I mean, I was pretty blown away about how much feedback we have, but it was definitely clutch that you counterbalanced it all, because I don't think anyone can read through the almost 400 comments and be pleased with what they saw, right? In fact, I want to share my top 3 list because I went through and I literally went through like 400 of those comments or whatever it is right now. And I've got my top 3 most annoying traits of a realtor. And again, this is about other realtors. So I want to start with number 3 and sort of work our way to number 1. But in the number 3 spot, the most annoying thing for a realtor is when other realtors do not pick up their phone or return calls. In the number 2 spot, ego and arrogance. Go figure. And in the number 1 most annoying trait from one realtor to the next, bottom line, is lack of respect. So I thought like all that was a real downer. And it's just plain out sad to see there's such a lack of respect amongst peers in this industry. And with your question, as I went through and read all of those answers as well, everybody is simply looking for honesty out of the realtor that they're dealing with on the other end, right? And I mean, I saw on your list, it was honesty, integrity, and communication. So when you look at my three, where it's not picking up calls, ego and arrogance, and lack of respect, on the flip side, you've got honesty, integrity, and communication. They just go hand in hand with each other, right? So I want to talk about these more with each other. How did you see it? Like, if you picked up on the same vibe, like, what was your thing there from everything I just mentioned?
I feel like anybody that's been in the business for longer than 20 years would agree that there seems to be an increase in the lack of integrity in our industry, and almost a nosedive, as many would say, of reliability of our peers and our colleagues in the field of doing business. And I don't think that that's deniable at all. But I also think that looking at the bigger picture and looking at it from an unbiased perspective or from an unemotional perspective would identify a variety of factors that in fact make the hostility and the anger almost acceptable, and not acceptable because it's valid, but acceptable because it's almost the changing tide of the world at large. I don't think it's just the real estate industry that is experiencing a massive explosion in population and an increase of a variety of maybe potentially clashing cultures and personality styles, and what some might attribute to be trends in new generations and how we were all raised versus how the new kids are being raised versus how the boomers were being raised. There's so many factors that contribute to what's happening in our industry. And frankly, what makes me the saddest is the difference in the number of comments that your post got over mine. And, we talk a lot about, coaches, life coaches, business coaches, waking up in the morning with purpose and with a positive mindset. And what concerned me the most is our venom and our viciousness directed towards each other and towards our clients and towards our brokerages that bend over backwards to serve us, and a lack of ability to be able to speak positively about what is good in our industry. And as a result of not speaking positively enough, we tend to somewhat lose sight of that a little bit. And that to me was the biggest takeaway from primarily your post, and also a little bit from my follow-up after.
Yeah, it was interesting. Like, I gotta say, I was definitely shocked. I mean, it was cool to see, you posted a real simple question. It was cool to see that so many people got engaged with it. But I mean, so many people were so quick to answer that. And look, for everybody listening, I'm not saying don't be quick to answer the questions the next time they come out. It's more about the fact that, like, yeah, we've got this sense of there is a negative sense out there, right? And I had read about that. I mean, I think what prompted me to ask that question was, I think it was even a couple of weeks ago, somebody else had been, or people were going off about the lack of respect in the industry. And, you mentioned generational. Do we think that is the new generation? Do we think that that's the fact that we've got all of these silly things bumping around, the fact that we've got the more connectivity? I mean, why is it that there's such a lack of respect, beyond that? Like, what are people thinking or feeling that they think that they can treat somebody else that way?
I mean, is it that?
Is this education? Sorry, is this an education thing? I mean, coming down from maybe either the licensing perspective or the brokers you work with, like, is it a culture thing from where you are?
I think that all of the above are equally contributing factors. Again, I do think that it has a lot to do with changes in personalities as the world continues to evolve and modernize. I think that it's a collaboration of a variety of cultures as Canadian continues to become multicultural, in various personality traits. It's a variety of thousands of contributory factors, in my opinion, as well as, again, an increased focus and an ease and a welcoming of being able to talk negatively and badly about people and have that be acceptable.
But why is that acceptable? Since when has that ever been acceptable that people should speak? I mean, here's another thing too. Like, to sit here and let's say you and I are not on air, which we are, but let's say we're not on air and we start talking poorly about others. I mean, I know for myself, I believe if I'm doing that, there's people out there talking poorly about me. And it's not that we can curb that or we can stop everybody who's going to have a negative thought about anything we're doing. That being said, the one thing I can do to try to limit that is I can watch the way I speak. I can watch what I say, whether I'm in a closed room or not, right? I mean, talking shit, talking trash, talking whatever, that's reality. You do that. I don't know about you, but I believe in karma. You do that stuff.
Anybody that knows me knows me.
Okay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if it's one of those, and don't get me wrong, again, everybody's got their opinions and that's all cool. But there's an aspect to that of like, if you're going to talk that way about others, what do you think people are saying about you?
Exactly. You know, and I think on the other side of that too, I mean, I think that we need to be more cognizant of how we treat each other. And it's one thing to be treated poorly and then to lash out against that in an effort to try and change that. But where in history have we ever also found that lashing out in anger actually fixes the problem?
Right.
Very rarely, you know, if I come to you and go, David, you're bleep, 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 and how do you not even understand that what you've done is bleep, 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 you know, and when has that ever changed your mind? But if I were to come to you productively and with kindness and with empathy to be able to say, you know, it really kind of resulted in this when you did this, and this is my perspective, that might give you more of an opportunity to really look within and go, oh yeah, you're right, I could have handled that a little bit better, and then maybe the outcome would have been a little bit more positive. And you know, I'm firmly entrenched in the notion of speaking openly and productively, and never necessarily being overly rude or you know, angry or vicious or over emotional with people. And I find for me that has a really positive influence on how you know, my days pan out and the relationships that I have with my colleagues and my peers.
Well, there's something to be said. I know for myself, I coach not only realtors, but coaching hockey, coaching baseball, and these are 8-year-olds that I'm coaching when it comes to sports. And one thing that we've learned as coaches when you go through all these classes is there's something in sports called the 24-hour rule, which means that something will happen, whether it be with another parent, whether it be with somebody on another team, whether it be with a coach and a parent between the coach. If you've got something to say, you wait 24 hours, and then you circle back on the next day, let's call it, and ask yourself if you still really want to say that. Because just exactly to what you just said, we lash, we go at it. Like we don't even think, we just boom, 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 we react. And then naturally, what's that reciprocation from somebody else? It's the same type of reaction. Well, now what do you have? A lack of respect, and you're not getting anywhere. Right. So there's got to be a way people say, and like even Cheryl just mentioned on here with the comments, right? It was that whole thing about people don't want to dive deep. They don't want to find the truth of the matter. And Cheryl, that's a great comment. Right? They don't want to invest the time or the energy into figuring out what really happened. How can I manage this? Right. And I mean, you know, you think about two people dealing with something on a house. And I know somebody posted up in the comment there where they were, you know, somebody posted today, one of the more recent posts was something about ghosting, right? And how other agents ghost them. And again, there's a lack of respect. You are there. You're communicating thoroughly with each other. You guys are intent with what you're trying to do. You get to where, let's say, I get to where I want to go. We're done. You come back to me with something, and I'm like, boop, see you later. I'm done with you. I don't need to talk to you anymore. That is a lack of respect.
Absolutely.
Right? The way people speak to each other. I mean, here, another one of the underlying themes, which I think goes hand in hand with this lack of respect, arrogance, ego, you know, people coming off looking down at others. And I mean, you know, we had a lot of women who commented on this post saying they don't want to be called babe and sweetheart. And don't get me wrong, I'm saying that's totally disrespectful. Like that is just horrible how anybody, and I don't think in today's world, like as I was reading those things and I thought to myself, I'm like, it is freaking 2020, people. You know, I'm not all for the big fluffy society. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't like certain things like that. Like, I still think there should be fighting in hockey if you want to go down that road, whatever. Right. But I'm like, I'm not into this fluffiness. So to me, there's an aspect of that. However, we're living in 2020. It is a new world. It is a new reality. People need to treat each other with respect. You need to be paying attention to, you know, the demographics of others, the races, the genders. Like, it is real. How can anybody speak that way to others? You know,
but,
why?
you know, on the other side of things too, though, David, you know, one of the mottos that I live by, that always come to mind when I have conversations like this, is that you can never control the actions of other people, but you do have full control over how you react to that. So maybe in the face of all of these frustrations that we're dealing with in our day-to-day business and having to rely on working with a colleague who has a very, very different perspective on how best to manage their business than we do, the only thing that we are charged with doing and our sole responsibility is to make sure that the process is as pleasant and as seamless as possible for our clients. And if we're sitting behind the scenes getting progressively angrier and angrier and angrier because this one guy just refuses to return the 17 pages I've left with his office, how can I best prepare my client to deal with the lack of communication from the listing agent? And getting angrier and angrier as a realtor isn't going to fix anything. It's going to make it worse because the client is going to feel that stress.
I love that point. So let me ask you this then, because again, and it's not a secret. I don't sell real estate. So for everybody wondering, I don't sell real estate.
Me neither.
So, you know what I mean? And like when but you're even more ingrained in terms of like you're like in the office. But
well,
much
and
the same.
I sold real estate for 11 years, and now I've been a managing broker for 2.
Point in hand, right? And I've never been there. So, but for me, I've been dealing with agents much the same day in and day out, just like you do. I mean, I'm not in a real estate office, but that's what I do is I speak with realtors all day, every day. I've been doing it for 14 years now. And so when I come at this, it's what are some of the processes? And this is why I ask you as opposed to me, but I mean, even for other people out there, what are some of those things that could happen that cause that? So you just mentioned, for example, I've sent you something, you're not getting back to me. What other things are going on out there? Like I'm trying to use the word, like, give me examples of types of things where somebody's going to lose their mind on somebody else. And how could somebody deal with that? Or when you get there, I mean, here was another comment we heard a lot of. I've been doing this 25 years. This is how to do it. Really? Or I love the people that call me up and they're like, I do 150 deals a year, blah, 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 blah. But I need a discount. You're like, you do it. Sorry.
But I'm not going to return your phone calls.
Like you know what I mean? How, right? But to me, that's ego. That's arrogance. That's almost a lack of respect for the way you speak to people.
It's an excuse is what it is. It maybe isn't even arrogance, and they probably wouldn't admit to that. It's an excuse. It's a buff. It's the ability to be able to say, I really don't know, but don't ask me because I should know. So we're just going to move on to the next topic.
You figure that's exactly what it is then? But you also mentioned this then. It's like prepare your clients to understand that lack of communication might be a problem. And again, for everybody listening and everybody paying attention to today and that's going to listen to this, through their podcast once it gets released on Friday is exactly that. How can we prepare people? So that's where I'm going. What kind of examples have we got? How do we use those examples of things that are creating this lack of respect to now sit back and go, I'm going to prepare myself as the realtor and I'm going to prepare my client fiduciary dues as their realtor. What are some of those things that happen? And so again, you listed one, communication. We're literally at the starting point. I've listed this house, signs about to go on the lawn, MLS listings going up. We are green light, go. What are some of these things that happen now? It's sort of that progression. Does that make sense? Does the question make sense there?
Yeah, totally. And really at the end of it, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, really listing all of the potential obstacles that you could run into.
But I like what you said though. It's that preparation, right? So I'm trying to think here of how do we take this topic of respect now and go, guys, because my goal today is that people learn from this thing and go, I'm going to be better. And David Kurt just mentioned, be the change that you want to see in the industry.
Yes.
Love it, yes. Right?
Well, and that's it. So the basis of all of these complaints and the basis of many of the things that, in my post are things that we appreciate about each other, literally all comes down to some level of communication, whether that's communication we have with our clients, communication with our broker, communication with the other realtor. It all, like the arrogance, the honesty, the picking up the phone call or returning an email or a text, all, like the multiple offers and not being informed that a pre-prescribed offer date has changed. All of those things is literally the common denominator of all of it is communication. So what can we do to protect ourselves against a lack of communication from anybody else, be it from our client? One of the common threads that we see in hacks all the time is, my client did this, or my client is a tire kicker, or my client, I showed them 7 properties and they bought with another realtor. What's the common denominator to fix all of that? It all comes down to communication. And I think the only way that you can avoid you yourself failing in the communication is to be proactive in opening that communication first. As the realtor, you're in control. So open that communication first, set the expectation, ask the questions that you need to know. And it may even be as simple as reaching a listing agent when you're a buyer considering putting in an offer and saying, what's the best way and the best times of the days to communicate with you, and set those expectations in advance.
I like that point. So, okay. So asking, so we're starting this whole thing, and we've got the listing, and now, a buyer rep might come to us right away. There's that open dialogue that says, and again, for everybody listen, I know communication is going to be a breakdown in our dealings together because it just seems to be a common theme, unfortunately. So now you walk into that right away and you go, okay, look, it seems to be we've just got this underlying thing that communication is going to be a problem. And the other person might be looking at you go like, I don't even know you. Why would you say that? And you go, no, I'm not pointing fingers at you. I'm just saying that, like, how are we going to deal with this? And I love that point. So what are the best times to communicate? Right? Where else do we see some of these breakdowns? Communication so far is great because I think like in anything, you're dating, it feels good. And then all of a sudden you decide to like make it, the commitment and everything's happy. And then maybe you even decide you want to get engaged and it's great times. And then there's a honeymoon. It's the best time of your life. And then you're married. Right. and Jen, if you're listening, I love you, sweetheart. But no, it's that thing. I mean, we go through that even in hockey with like, hockey parents on a hockey team, like, the season starts, everybody makes the team. It's great. And then, depending on what happens halfway throughout the season, people either love each other or hate each other, right? Winning, losing, whatever. But what are those points? So even if the opening of this moment together, this relationship with yourself and your seller, now you're dealing with others, like another party, that starts off well. You might even know each other. What are some of the other places that we might get some breakdowns there in terms of, again, having that lack of respect and sort of staying on that?
I feel like humans inherently are afraid to ask for feedback. And I think that that's another way of, again, dealing with the common denominator of communication, but asking somebody how you're doing. And, this is applicable in your personal life, in your marriage, as much as it is in your client relationships, as much as it is with your relationship with your broker. I mean, another trend that we see all the time is people going, I'm unhappy in my brokerage. What do I need to do to switch? And who do I go to? And they go out and they get sold by all the shiny objects from other brokerages. But the one thing that they haven't done is sat down with their current broker and said, I'm unhappy and I feel like I'm missing X, Y, and Z. You can do that with your partner. You can do that with your best friend. You can do that with anybody in your life. The other realtor sitting across the table in negotiations. How am I doing? And then being prepared for what that feedback is and being prepared to take that, almost personally, but not overblowing it. And then using that information to try and regain control of the situation.
Feedback is huge, and so many people are scared to ask it.
Why are we so afraid to ask for it? Like,
you know what? I think people are scared just to know, did they make a mistake? Did they not? Like, I mean, I would tell you, kind of just even my own world for a moment. But I mean, with all the keynote speaking that I'll do, I know for years, and we still do this every once in a while, we'd have a video camera rolling. And I had to do the hard work of like sitting down and watching that thing after the fact. And I mean, I'm on stage and I think I killed it. Everybody's having fun. And then you go home and you turn on this camera. You're like, oh man, did I say that? Did I do that? Did I talk like that?
I look that fat.
Was I just did that in front of all those people, but that is hard, right? So it's hard to accept feedback from others. I mean, even like, we did a course in Jersey, me and Andrew Foliato, we did a course in Jersey a few years ago where people had to critique what you were doing. And it was literally, we had to do like a 5-10 minute presentation in front of people. And literally 20 people sat there in the room going, okay, here's why you sucked. Here's what you need to do better next time. But you learn a lot. It is hard to hear. And I think that that's the biggest thing, is that people are just scared to hear the feedback. But the more we ask it, the more we learn where we're doing good, where we're doing bad. I mean, I say to anybody, hey, what did you think about ABC? And by the way, just before you answer that, I'd love to hear the good, but I need to hear the bad and the ugly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's, now that I'm sitting in this chair, it's a lot different. And I have realtors that come in and they sit across from me on the desk and they say, I'm really unhappy at my brokerage. They promised this and this and this, and then they're not providing it. And my immediate question to them is, have you told them that this is what you're expecting and you're not being delivered? And many of them say, well, no, but I just know that it doesn't exist. And so I offer it to them, and then they join, and they're very happy here, of course. But,
well, that was easy.
But, for the most part, it really is just being able to say, this isn't making me happy and I need this, and this is what you could do to make things easier in the situation. And again, with the communication, it really all boils down to not being afraid to say when you need something more or something less.
And I think that is probably one of the biggest factors of where the lack of respect comes in.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you nailed it right there.
Because a lot of people that do share that do it disrespectfully, because it's all well and good to pop into a real estate Facebook group and say, realtors are terrible because of X, Y, and Z, and use a whole bunch of expletives and call people names. But really all that does is it just drags us all down, because then we all get painted with the same brush, which is why I tried to put a different spin on my post later, a few days later, by saying, but what is it that we love? Because essentially the same message came across. We love communication. We love being able to talk openly and figure out problems together and tackle those challenges together. And it's the same issue, but dealing with it in a more productive and positive light that builds us up.
And I thought that was, that's exactly, again, where I was saying off the top of the show today. I had gone through your post, and I mean, I'd been following it obviously since you put it up there. But then really going through it with like that fine tooth comb last night, and I did the same thing with mine. I wanted to read every comment and truly understand what is it. And I mean, I boiled it down to like the top 3, but there's a lot of underlying things that go through that. Communication is the forefront of it all. How you communicate, when you communicate, do you communicate, right? Speak to people. I think we've probably nailed that part of it, saying, when we look at the lack of respect in this industry, if you think to yourself that, well, they don't care and I'm not going to say anything, well, you're probably going to get that exact reciprocation from somebody on the other end. They don't care. I'm not going to say anything. It's a cold relationship. There's nothing going on. That said, though, everybody's got to really keep in mind something here. And here's another thing we see from people is like, why did this person travel 3 hours to sell a house in my neighborhood? Why don't they just refer it out to me, and then, I can do the deal? And now they get a referral fee, which I see a lot of logic in. At the same time, somebody else mentioned, and then you get a networking opportunity, which again, there's even more logic in. And now you're just expanding your reach. You're expanding the network of people you've got that do actually like you and will continue to have respect for you.
Yeah, and we can go ahead and keep focusing on everything that everybody else is doing wrong, but how are you able to take that and make you better? So, to your point, when we've got an out-of-town realtor that comes in and they're not a member of the local board and they're asking us for comps because they don't have access to them themselves, and we can get so frustrated and refuse to give them the comps. But again, what does that accomplish at the end of the day? It's just asking for a difficult transaction if that person does end up bringing in an offer. So instead, how can you respond proactively to that, keeping your client's best interest in mind and making sure that your stress levels remain a minimum instead of getting angry and frustrated and refusing to help this guy out? Bite your tongue, bite your cheek, send him the comps, and be selective and choosy about the comps that you send him so that he brings in a higher than reasonable offer so that your seller can get the most out of it at the end of the day. Make it work for you. You're never going to be able to change an out-of-town realtor who's totally uneducated on your market coming in and asking you for you to do their work for them. You're never going to stop that. So make it work for you.
Well, much the same, even if they're local and you're going through that same example, same process right there, right? It's setting your expectations. But it's also understanding that part of the role of what we do here, what we do in helping people buy and sell real estate and helping people doing it, right, is to market and negotiate.
Right.
So part of negotiation is you don't know which way it's going, but you got to be able to think on your feet. You've got to be able to react proactively. You've got to be able to, roll with the punches, bend and weave as you need to, bob and weave, whatever that saying is, right? But you've got to be able to kind of roll with it as it comes at you and do it with a smile. Everything's good. Everything's happy. I got you. Don't worry about it. No sweat. So what happens then when somebody is, because I think that there's another expectation, right? Is, well, I sent you the email 5 minutes ago. Why haven't you responded yet?
But even worse, I sent you the email 5 days ago. Why haven't you responded?
Okay, now that's a communication thing, right? That's a communication thing. So here then, do you think that success breeds this way of thinking and acting that causes people to become arrogant, become, sort of walk around with this ego on them? Do you think it's the success? Do you think it's the fact that, hey, I'm going to throw it out there. Do you think it's the fact that they just plain and simple have this thing called a real estate license and they went and bought a nice fancy car? You know what I mean? Like they wear a nice suit and got some nice bio pictures. Like, I don't know. Like what is it? Why is this happening? It does success breed this way of thinking and acting?
Is it success? No, I don't think so. I
Okay.
know a lot of, I know, in fact, in my perspective and in my experience, the vast majority of high producers that I know do not have that kind of attitude.
Okay.
It's a
Well,
very
and that's
small
good to
percentage.
hear.
It's a very small percentage. And we all know a couple, but if I would challenge anybody to stop and think and maybe even write a list of all of the people that do, say, more than 30 transactions a year, and write them all down and then grade them on how you think of them. Are they a jerk? Are they arrogant? Do they throw their weight around really easily? And again, in my opinion, it's a very, very small percentage of all of the higher producers that I know. But the bad apples do poison the bunch, and it tends to be a lot easier to blanket good people with the bad people standing beside them than it is to do the other. So I don't think it's success. I think honestly, it may be a questionable self-worth that is almost like, a cornered, wounded tiger being poked, and they still have that need to be a tiger, but they're weak and they need assistance. And for some people, especially the higher producers that lash out like that or that act arrogant and egotistical like that, I really do find that it more is a question of self-value than it is the actual opinion that they're better than everybody else.
I love that analogy of the tiger right there. I thought that was great, actually, because it's true, right? You get folks that are probably sort of at the cusp of success, or they've been there for a little while, and now all of a sudden maybe it's not being experienced exactly the same way it was before. Yet I've got X amount of years in real estate, and I've done X amount of transactions. You've got to be listening to me. There's that kind of thing of still wanting to be the tiger, but starting to get poked.
Yeah, absolutely. And just reading the comments on our live post here, and I just see that Ben Sage agrees with me as well, that he's met lots of successful agents as well who are the least arrogant, most collaborative agents out there, and they do contribute to making our industry a very good place. And again, there was something that I'd heard where if you ask a consumer what they feel about realtors in general, they'll use words like dishonest and egotistical and greedy and money hungry and all of those things. And if you ask a consumer what they feel about their realtor, they'll tell you that that person would jump in front of a truck for me. They're
Right.
always there for me. They'd drop everything to come if I needed them for any reason, not just to make a paycheck, but because I need them. And that really is poignant, that the vast majority of realtors are good, honest, hardworking people, and we shouldn't be letting the bad ones ruin our positive outlook on ourselves, because we are the only contributors to bringing down the overall integrity of our business by continuing to focus our anger on those who don't do it well.
Okay. Now there's a lot that don't do it well. So
What do you
much.
think the percentage is, David?
I'm going to say to you that I'm going to tell you this then, and I'm going to get real specific on numbers for a moment here, because this was brought to my attention, I guess, a year and a half ago, I think it was. Now these are isolated to, and this is no knock on anything. This is published stuff, but TREB. Now this is 2018 stats. Okay, so forgive me, everybody. Now we do know that the stats do come out kind of after the fact. This was released last year. I think I saw this in the spring of 2019. Registered agents with TREB were almost 54,000. Agents who did 0 deals represented almost 38%. Agents who did less than 6 or 1 to 6 represented 48%. Agents who did 7 to 12 represented just under 10%. Now, if you flip that around, you say agents who did anywhere from 12 to 24 deals, in fact, 12 plus, represented 4.5% of the market.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which was a big round number of about 1,600, 1,700 agents.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that to me is a really, really scary thing to see. You've got a lot of people running around this industry that don't do much. Now, anybody listening who does less than 12 deals, do not take that the wrong way and think to yourself, oh, David's not going to be, I'm no good. No. If you're building your business with integrity and you've got respect and you're doing all the right things and you're just not getting the biz, that's cool. And by the way, I can help you with that. But going beyond that, but I mean, going beyond that, it's if you're trying, if you're there, if you're thinking the right way, doing the right things, wonderful, good for you. But what about this big percentage, the thousands, tens of thousands of other people that aren't doing anything?
So obviously those numbers are not accurate, because we've got people on teams who never have a transaction that go on their name. We've got people that do pre-construction. Right. We've got people that do, commercial, and they don't have any MLS activity, but they are very productive and very busy in some capacity in the industry. So
I think I got it. No, I did. We got to do it again. Cool. Everybody watches like, what the hell, man? You're on live. Don't worry about it.
Just keep talking, for crying out loud.
Gotta focus.
So the numbers are skewed a little bit, but okay, let's just say, for example, that we've got 75% of TREB's population that are doing less than 6 transactions year over year. But going back to the immediate topic that we were addressing before we got into these numbers, how many of those 75% of people are either A, uneducated, even if they are inexperienced or underqualified, and B, how many of those are actually terrible people? Like we have no idea what the percentage of that 75% are actually arrogant, egotistical jerks that we don't want to do business with. We can surmise. I know I can name some people off the top of my head who are immediately going to say, all of them, they're all terrible. Get them all out of the industry.
But we know that's not the truth, right?
But for some people, their perspective is that that is true. And in mine, I also look at other stats, like, our industry has an 80% attrition rate within a 2-year period. So 80% of new registrants coming right out of AREA and now Humber will not renew their registration after 2 years, because the industry isn't as easy as they thought it was, or they can't live off of an atypical income, or whatever the reason is, or they couldn't do a deal because they're one of those 75%. But again, are they terrible people? Are they the ones that don't return the phone calls? What actually is the percentage of that? And we're never going to know. It may be small. It may be huge. We don't know.
So,
but
and
again,
you said,
why wake up in a day and leave our house and go to work expecting that nobody's going to return our phone call? We shouldn't be doing that, but we should be better capable of dealing with that internally if we do run into somebody that isn't returning our phone calls.
Well, I think part of that is back to what you said before, is expectations, right? Set your own expectations, prepare your client for what to expect. And I mean, it would be nice if for every phone call I made, the answer on the other line was yes. That being said, if we can set expectations to go, look, that's not realistic. In fact, you're probably going to hear a lot more no's, and that's reality of life, than you are going to be hearing yeses. If you can expect and set those expectations, you can kind of wake up and go, I am just not going to be pissed off, or as pissed off, or pissed off at all at those people on the other end that said no, because I kind of expected that. And it's not about being negative or thinking in a negative way. It's again, being realistic around what things look like, right? And then when we talk about, people that come into the industry, I mean, we know that there's a lot of people that come into this industry that might have got degrees, certifications, diplomas, maybe in other countries, that are super duper smart, but for some reason, whatever it is they got there doesn't jive over here. And now they come here and they go, well, what am I going to do? They decide to make a living or start a real estate career without really understanding what this whole industry takes. Right. So I think it is setting expectations for yourself around everything, around how you deal with your clients. I mean, even when we talk about the clients, right? And we talk about being there and responding to them and being all over them and everything's good. And they would jump in front of a train for you. Something everybody else also understand here is that, and we know the stats there for, but I can't remember my realtor's name. Like, they're a little too high, right? How many people sort of worked with a realtor, loved the realtor, would work with them again, but kind of go, I just don't remember who they are. Now, I think in today's world, it's very different than it was a number of years ago. So we are so connected, but everybody needs to understand. And I say this in maybe a little bit more blunt of a way, but you're a drug to people, right? You are there holding their hand through the biggest move of their entire life. This is expensive. And if they're relying on you, forget all these iBuyers. And I know I read an article in REM about the iBuyers and blah, 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 but you are there to work and coach them through this entire process, make them feel comfortable, let them know you've got it, right? And that's the same idea for the agent on the other end. And so that's your role. How can you work together to make this the best experience for these two clients, these two parties, the entire way through.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And how can you choose your own actions and make your own choices to be able to put a positive impression about the industry as a whole on everybody that you come into contact in a day? And I'm not one of those, woo-woo, wishy-washy, wake up in the morning with purpose and mindset. And if you're nice to other people, then the world will be a nicer place. I mean, there's a point to that, but I'm not getting all, spiritual and whatever about it. But it is true. And I've applied that, here in my role here, where when somebody does something that frustrates you, if you respond the same way, the relationship will deteriorate and the situation will dissolve very quickly, and it's a downward spiral. And if you pause and smile and think about how best for you to come out of that situation, making sure that you've put a positive note on that and you've done the best that you can for your client in spite of the disaster that the other realtor is, then it's going to result in a much more positive result than it would if you had responded in frustration and anger.
Okay, so now flip this over and sort of come out of, my post stuff. And obviously there's been this underlying topic around both of them, but flip this into the stuff we got out of yours, which again was really nice to see, right? And so everybody knows, everybody wants more honesty from the other realtor they're working with.
And I don't know if you would agree with this, but we're much more quick to call out the crap than we are to really acknowledge the good.
We were born that way, though. Yeah. Not born, pardon me. We were trained that way as kids. And I say this like this. Sorry to interrupt that. You did something wrong, you were reprimanded. You did something good, nobody said anything. Right? We don't normally get rewarded for the good we do. We normally get told when we're doing wrong.
And there's an argument that would say, of course, why should you be rewarded for doing something good when that's just what you should be doing all the time? But what it's resulted in, of course, is this increase in the ability to be able to say when something is wrong and not be reprimanded for that. And now it's very easy and free to say you're a jerk and not have any repercussions for that rudeness. And again, you're right. I think there's also an underlying perception that if you are too kind or too acknowledging of the good that somebody has accomplished, that it may be a sign of your own weakness, or that it may make the other person more lackadaisical and go, oh, well, I've already done a good job, so I'm just going to sit back and kick up my feet and stop doing a good job because I've worked hard enough. And neither of those things, I think, are true, at least not in my experience. So maybe one of the things that people might take away from our conversation today is, really making an effort to say when something went right and to acknowledge the other person's contribution into whatever it was that went right, and to say thank you and to say you did that really well, keep that up, and not feel like it's some kind of sign of inner weakness.
I don't think it's a sign of inner weakness at all. I learned a number of years ago, and this was hanging out, talking, conversing, learning from some, again, uber successful people in their own world, and not necessarily realtors. People that you might look at and go, I wonder if people think that guy's scary, or I wonder if people think that she's mean, or what. And you spend time with these people to realize they are some of the most kindest, genuine people, no matter what that perception is of them from wherever you got that from. And I don't think at all it's a sense of weakness when you say to people, oh, you did a great job, or hey, thank you, or please. I don't think that's a sign of weakness at all. In fact, I think that's a sign of strength. I think when you can sit back and praise people, no matter who it is, for the good that they did and how they helped, and use the words please and use the words thank you, you maintain your own integrity, and you are somebody who is helping somebody else feel a little bit better about themselves. Now we come back to that topic of communication, to stick that in, and kind of when they do go, I'm going to kick my feet up and I don't have to do so well because Sandra told me I'm doing a great job, so ghost time. No, by the way, listen, yesterday you were great. Today, I don't know what the hell happened to you. But I think there's something important there that if you can create that dialogue and again, set that expectation right off the top of those dealings with whoever you're about to deal with, you say, look, here's how I work. And again, don't say it the way I just said it. In fact, look, here's how I work. No, now you're an asshole, right? Approach it in a different way and say, hey, let's sit down and talk about some of the things we know about, and here's where we might run into a couple issues, and it might be, lack of timing or getting back to each other. So why don't we get on the same page? Let's make this the best experience we possibly can for people. And you might not like that person on the other end. You might not like them. Who cares?
Yeah.
This ain't about you.
No,
right? This ain't about you.
Yes.
It's not, right? Like,
Yes.
Get over the you. This is about them. Who are you helping?
Yeah.
Right? If we can keep that in mind and kind of put all the BS aside, I think the experience starts to become better for everybody involved.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And then, so talking of that then, because we've seen this whole thing, and I mean, we talk about like honesty and integrity, right? And I mean, all of that comes to it. It's, we know the line, overpromise, underdeliver, right? And that's where integrity comes from, is that if you're going to say to somebody you're going to do, or you're going to say to somebody that the house has or whatever, that it's true. Trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes, like, it's not going to bode well for you in the long term.
No.
Right?
No.
The more honest and the more integrity you have, the more honesty you have, pardon me, the more people are going to respect. And again, I'm sorry, but when it does come to gratitude and intention setting, I do believe in this stuff a lot. And I believe that part of it is that's where your successes come from. The more you can be intentional about being, again, positive and having respect and treating people right and doing the things that are best in the best interest of your client, but not just your client, but the other party. And you might be sitting there going, no, I don't represent the other party. Again, you're trying to make this a positive experience for both, and you're trying to get future business, right? That's where your referrals come from. It's that experience. But so now into that, right? Because one of the big things we saw, which again, topic in yours was communication, topic in mine was really, returning phone calls. What the hell is the deal with people, realtors, not picking up their phone, not returning calls? I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You've got this mobile entrepreneurial spirit about you. You've gotten into this industry that is all about this. I mean, I would think the industry lives and dies by this. Why the hell are people so bad with it? What's the deal there?
So I can't answer that because I'm totally guilty of not returning phone calls.
Okay, so Sandra, why don't you know?
Because I can't stand the phone. I can't stand the phone. And I'll be honest with you, and I'll be honest with the hopefully dozens of people that will watch this podcast, or hundreds of people that watch this podcast. I can't believe I'm about to say this out loud. I hate my voice. Like, I can't stand my voice. I hate it. I'm embarrassed by it. It's a complex. It's a self thing. I hate my voice. So talking on the phone when you can't see my face, where I can distract you with hand movements and, crazy facial gestures. If I can't distract you with my body language and with more aspects of me that I am happy with and proud of, I feel very self-conscious when I'm just talking on the phone. Video chat, I'm all in. Text, I'm all in. Zoom calls, I'm all in. In person, I'm all in. Phone, oh God, I'll do it later. And I gotta work up the balls to call somebody back. So in a sense, maybe that's some people's problems, because it certainly is mine. I mean, granted, I will call you back because I have to, and I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a professional, and I will. It just might take me a little bit longer to get there than you might like.
Okay, so two things on that. Number one, I find it incredible that you can get on video and be just fine with that, but on a phone call, like, it's scary, because we normally see it the total opposite. But much the same way I say to everybody, and probably a lot of people listening have heard me say it before, but when you look in the mirror and you speak, you look and sound the exact same way on the phone and on camera. And I said that to Jen. I said that to Jen the other day. She goes, "No, I don't." I'm like, no, honey, you really do. Like, in
fairness, I don't though, because when I'm on the phone, I'm like, "Hi, how are you today?" Because I'm uncomfortable and I'm trying to change my voice.
Totally couldn't even see you being that way. There's not the Sandra I know. There's no way, right? But okay, but getting on beyond that, because I don't know. I want to take a stab at the fact that it's not a lack of comfort, but I think it is a lack of professionalism. I really do. I think I think there's an aspect to it of we are bombarded. Like, we both know by the time we shut this, like we shut down here today and we end it live and we go to our phones, there's emails, there's direct messages through, WhatsApp and Facebook and Insta and text messages. And it's crazy. There's a lot of notifications on that phone. Do you think it's just that? Do you think we're just over bombarded with that? And I would say that's definitely a reason for it.
Yeah.
But when you're in the middle of a deal, and you're in the middle of exchanging back and forth with people. Like, what the hell? Isn't that what you're focused on?
But again, so multifaceted, because a lot of it could be, I just don't know what to do next. And so again, part of natural humanity for the majority of people is avoidance rather than dealing with the challenge. And if there is a challenge, like I was just working with one of my realtors who was dealing with a challenging transaction, and her buyer was being a little bit difficult, and finances needed to be extended. And there were a lot of problems that came back with the home inspection, and they were trying to negotiate what to do. And you could tell that the listing agent was just like, I don't even want to deal with this anymore. Like, this is so frustrating. They want so many things because of the home inspection, and I don't want to deal with it. So he didn't deal with it. And my poor buyer realtor is coming to me going, this guy, like, I'm sending him emails, and I know, like, he's leaving me on red, which I know is one of James Lewis's biggest annoyances. Like, he's leaving me on red. He's reading my messages and he's leaving me on red, and he's not replying. And I've called his front office. He is the broker, so it's not like I can escalate this. And I'm just trying to get this deal done for my buyer. What the heck do I do when he's literally not returning my phone calls? So what can you do?
I would say this. Yes, I think everybody sort of shies away from challenges, unfortunately. Hence the Mindshare challenge. We are going to challenge you, but people do shy away from this stuff, and I think that's human nature. So when it comes to making the phone calls and it comes to reconnecting with people, even answering emails, I know it is a daunting task. I know every time I'm about to start doing my calls. Now, first of all, I get hyped up to make phone calls. I love getting on the phone with people. I love talking to people, just because I love talking to people. Right? It's like the work is the byproduct of why. It's more about just conversing with others. And I mean, even this morning, I had some amazing phone calls with people. That's great. However, those phone calls are scheduled in the calendar. So I know last night, and any of my challengers are listening that have taken my previous year, you're going, Dave, I know this one, but I know last night I take my 15 to 20 minutes every night and I schedule today. Okay. So everything from when I'm doing my social media to, like, I'm going to check in and I'm going to see what my, my peeps are up to and what I'm going to post, and, when I'm going to check my emails. So when am I responding to other people? When am I going to make my phone calls, right? And that could be blocking an hour to 2 hours of your time strictly as a line item in your calendar for calls, right? So I'll even have a line item that says emails and calls.
Right.
Because if it's email, it's me maybe getting out and reaching out to people. If it's calls, it's me reaching out to people. And again, do it however you want. But if it's emails and calls, I know now I am responding to people. So I've got to get myself mentally locked in to go, Dave, at 11 o'clock on Wednesday is when you are going to pick up the phone and you're going to get back to all those people that called you. Granted, I'm not in the same line of work you guys are in, where, there's this condition and it's got to be, dealt with, and everything, it's all timing and things have to be happening in minutes. So this is the same. For everybody here, to get the calls done, it's imperative that you're calling, whatever it is, 5 to 10 people on your list every single day, the contact list. Schedule your prospecting time in. But if you really want to figure out how to get past that challenge of saying, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to get back to her, even though I don't want to, schedule it in. Make sure you know when you're going to do it. Get yourself mentally prepared, pick up the phone and do it. Because if you don't do it and you ghost people, leave them on red, you just don't respond because, like, well, I'm done, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. There's that lack of respect. There's that lack of integrity. There's that lack of communication. There's that big problem. And it's not just a problem between you and the other realtor. That's a problem between your client, the other client, and everybody involved in this one transaction.
And you'll end up not being able to afford your renewal when you've got to do your RICO update when that comes within the next 2 years.
Isn't that a great point, right? Because where's all the business coming from?
Right.
And I know there's a lot of people that are making a bunch of money out there prospecting, lead generating, ads, whatever it is. But you know what, folks, I'm going to say it, and I've been saying it for years, and I'm going to continue to say it. 79% of your business comes from your contact list. And that doesn't mean that, if Sandra, you're on my list, you might send me a referral. You might not do direct business with me, but that's technically still coming from my list. So if I can build the relationship with you, do it the right way, and then build the mind share on a consistent basis, what ends up happening at the end of the day, even in a year, 2 years, 5 years from now, if I'm doing everything right, I'm your realtor, whether you're buying and selling it or not. But if that one moment, and this is where I use that analogy, you're a drug to me. If you leave me cold turkey the next day after you get the signature, that's a hard thing to kick.
Mhm.
right? You were with me, you were there with me, you're holding my hand, you were taking care of me, everything else, and now you're gone.
You've made it obvious it's only about the paycheck.
You've made it obvious, right? All you're trying to do is do this. And I think, again, that's where we see the bad apples in this industry, is when it's just about getting the signature and then you got to move on because you're too busy and you got other things to do. You know what? That right there is where you lost.
But you have to be careful too, not to masquerade that, so for anybody watching this who's now going to go out with the mindset that they just have to make people believe that they're going to be their friends and then therefore the business will come, it's not about that either, right? And we see a lot of that subtle pitching, that subtle marketing, where it's like, I'm going to pretend to be your friend, but really I'm trying to sell you something. I'm going to pretend to be your friend, but really I just want more business out of you. And people are perceptive, and they can read through that like that.
Well,
So
there's the integrity, right?
yeah, so you really have to make sure that if you're going to focus on, being a term that I've heard a couple of people use, a freeltor, like half friend, half realtor, that you literally are working on.
I haven't heard that. That goes into the books with like me and Nelson Goulart, we call people sheeple, right?
Yeah, well,
Sheep and people.
exactly. It's like a really good mashup of two really good words. You want to be people's realtor, but the key is making sure that you genuinely are their friend first. And their realtor second, because the only reason why we have friends in our circle is because we enjoy giving back to them because they give to us. And what is it that they give to us? It's making us feel loved and making us feel special and making us feel valued. And if we can do that to our database, provide them a little bit of insight into the expertise that we have in the real estate market and the real estate economy, and how best to set yourself up financially in terms of your property investments, but also make them feel like you, David, are really important to me. And you may be able to refer me some realtors that may want to join my branch and benefit from me working with them, and that's fantastic. But really, I'm getting something more out of you, and that's the ability to be able to bounce ideas off you and get a really honest take on what that is. And I value that way more than I value the potential that you might drop a realtor into my branch.
I couldn't agree with that statement more. I really couldn't. I mean, I think that's a big thing, and I've even experienced it myself from people where they've got this almost predetermined notion that David's trying to sell something. And the reality is, for 95% of the things that I share out there and the value that I try to put out there to the industry, I mean, hell, we all have a business, and of course we want you to buy something, but my goal is not that. When I put stuff out, my goal is purely education, purely connection points, purely spark a conversation. And I'm trying to learn just as much. Like when I put out that post, What a Noisy Post, I wanted to learn. Mm-hmm. Right. I wanted to see, because there was that thing, like I mentioned before a few weeks ago, that somebody had said that there was just this ongoing thing of like lack of respect. Mm-hmm. So I thought, interesting. I'm curious here. Right. What is it? So anyways, you've got to be genuine. And I love the point that you brought up about that. And it's not even just with your clients, but it again is with the other people on the other side. And for anybody thinking, yeah, but I really don't care to be her friend, or I don't care to be his friend, and like, I don't even know who the hell these people are, probably never going to see them again. Got it. But what's wrong with making another positive connection in life, with networking with just another person? Right. Leaving that positive impact and being real about it. Again, not being fake. This is the integrity, not being fake, not putting on the smile or you're telling them to fly a kite, right? Right? But it's being real with people.
As we close this up, David, you're absolutely right. And I'd like to make an offer to anybody watching this, that if they want to bounce some ideas off of me on how to put a positive spin on a negative situation, I think that I'm really good at that. And I really enjoy talking with people about how to put a positive and productive spin on something that is a negative experience. Feel free to DM me anytime, reach out to me anytime. I love having those conversations.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, and I was going to say, as we're going there, I wanted to, I guess, bringing back the overarching topic of where we went at today, what realtors have to say about other realtors. What sort of closing words of inspiration do you have for just anybody that is listening, kind of just to tie it all together and wrap it up today?
Piling anger and frustration on top of anger and frustration makes things worse. Find a productive avenue, find a positive spin, fix it with happiness and love rather than trying to kick it in the teeth, because that doesn't fix anything.
Love it. Set your expectations, have patience, understand where you're trying to get to, and then go forward. Yeah. Sandra, where can people go to connect and learn more if they want to get in touch with you? I know you just sort of threw that out there, which is amazing. Where can they go?
I'm super easy to Google. So Google Sandra Kirkland, my Facebook, my website, sandrakirkland.com. I'm on Insta at Sandra Kirkland Official. And I'm super easy to find on Facebook as well. Links below. I'll drop them in the comment. Links below.
Wicked, wicked, wicked. Look, I, on behalf of everybody, I want to say thank you. Thank you for everything that you do provide to the industry. As we already talked about today, many times we don't hear it often enough. But I know as your friend and as a person who watches you on social media, watches you on the social webs, we do see all the good you're providing. We really do. And I wanted to thank you for even taking the time to come onto the Mindshare podcast today and just, extend that to you. And just, again, thank you for the time today.
I was super chuffed when you asked me, David. So thank you, and keep doing what you're doing, because, people can be having the worst day in the world, and as soon as they see your smile and hear your voice, it automatically cheers people up. So keep doing what you're doing.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. So everyone, don't forget, 40% off the Mindshare Challenge is happening right now. You can read testimonials. You can get more info. Just go to themsc101.com. And make sure you don't miss this awesome deal. Again, that promo code is MS10140. We are going to get you ready to smash the spring market this year. 60 days to a lot more deals. Are you up for the challenge? You're either listening to this on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify. Or maybe you went to industrysyndicate.com. Maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app. Or maybe you went to my website, mindshare101.com. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, connect with me on Facebook at Mindshare101 and on Instagram at DavidGreenspan101. This has been another episode of the Mindshare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening.